I never imagined that sharing half of my lunch would change my entire life. He looked homeless, forgotten, invisible to the world. I didn't even know his name when I handed him my food, but days later, I stood frozen in shock. Because that same man was sitting across from me, as my fiancé's billionaire father, my life had never been easy, but I was used to surviving quietly. I worked as a junior designer at a small firm, living paycheck to paycheck, always counting coins before buying groceries. I didn't complain much. Life had taught me that complaining didn't change anything. It only made people stop listening. I had recently gotten engaged to Daniel, the love of my life. He was kind, gentle, and different from anyone I'd ever met. But there was one thing he never talked about, his family. Whenever I asked, he would smile softly and say, "It's complicated." One rainy afternoon, after another long day at work, I stopped by a small park near my office. I sat on a bench, opened my lunch bag, and sighed. Inside was a simple sandwich, nothing fancy, just bread, vegetables, and a little cheese. I was about to take a bite when I noticed a man sitting a few feet away. He looked tired. His clothes were worn, his beard untrimmed, his eyes distant. People walked past him like he didn't exist. Some even turned their faces away. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the way he held his hands together, as if trying to keep warm. Maybe it was the loneliness I saw in his eyes, something I recognized all too well. I stood up, walked over, and held out my sandwich. "Would you like this?" I asked softly. He looked up, surprised. For a moment, I thought he might refuse. Then his eyes filled with something I couldn't name. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You didn't have to." I smiled. "I know, but I wanted to." He took the sandwich carefully, like it was something precious. As I walked away, I didn't think much of it. To me, it was a small act, just food, just kindness. I had no idea that moment would follow me home. That evening, Daniel called me, sounding nervous. "Tomorrow," he said, "I want you to meet my father." My heart skipped. "Your father?" "Yes," he replied. "Please, just be yourself." I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, Daniel picked me up in silence. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "My father is not an easy man," he said carefully. "He doesn't trust people." That didn't calm my nerves. We arrived at a massive estate, tall gates, long driveway, a house so large it didn't feel real. I felt small the moment I stepped out of the car. Inside, everything was quiet, cold, perfect. A maid led us into a grand living room, and there he was, sitting in a leather chair, holding a cup of tea. My heart stopped. It was him, the homeless man from the park, only now he was clean, shaven, dressed in an expensive suit, his posture calm and powerful. I felt dizzy. My mind raced. This couldn't be real. Daniel smiled nervously. "Dad, this is the woman I told you about." The man looked up at me slowly. His eyes met mine. Recognition flashed across his face. I wanted to run. I was embarrassed, confused. Afraid, had I offended him, had I crossed a line. The room felt heavy. "You fed me," he said finally. My voice trembled. I didn't know who you were." He set his cup down and stood up. "I know," he said. "That's why I asked you here." I glanced at Daniel, panic in my chest. What was happening? His father walked closer, his footsteps slow. "Do you know," he said, "how many people walk past a hungry man every day?" I stayed silent. They judge, they assume, they ignore. He looked straight into my eyes. "You didn't." Tears burned in my eyes. I thought he was angry. Instead, his voice softened. "For years," he continued, "I've lived surrounded by money and lies. I dress poorly sometimes. I go out alone. I watch people, not for business, for truth." Daniel stared at his father, shocked. "I wanted to see." The man said, "Who you were, before I trusted you with my son." The silence broke when he smiled, a real smile. "I've tested many people," he said. "Friends, business partners, even family. Most failed." He turned to Daniel, but she passed. I felt my knees weaken. "You gave without knowing," he said to me. "You didn't ask my name. You didn't expect anything back." He paused. That tells me more than any background check ever could. Tears rolled down my face. I hadn't realized how much fear I was holding inside. Fear of not being enough, of being judged, of being rejected. "I don't care where you come from," he said gently. "I care who you are." Daniel stepped forward, his eyes shining. "Dad, thank you." The man nodded. You chose well. That evening we talked for hours. He told me about his loneliness, about how wealth had built walls around him instead of comfort, how kindness had become rare in his world. I was hungry that day, he admitted, not just for food. When we left, he hugged me. Never change, he whispered. The world tries to harden good hearts. Weeks later, he surprised us again, funding a shelter near that same park. Not in his name, in mine. I returned to that bench often, not to test people, but to remember who I was, and who I wanted to stay. Kindness doesn't ask for names or status. It doesn't check bank accounts or family backgrounds. It simply gives, quietly, honestly. That sandwich taught me something priceless. The smallest kindness can open the biggest doors.